Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Johann.
So, this is Ash Mielke. She's the founder and the director of the Grief and Healing Center, Trauma Center. So, that's a pretty impressive operation. I saw your website. It's very well done. You have a big group of therapists there. What's it like running such a big practice?
We're almost 10 years in the making. So I would say, honestly, you just like, as you continue to grow and scale up in your business, you just become used to the new level of responsibility that you carry. So it's interesting. That's a great question because um, it doesn't really feel like I'm running a large practice. I think because I've been immersed in it for so long and I have a very strong leadership team. So that's incredibly helpful in terms of just delegating tasks and not carrying the weight of the business on my shoulders.
How did you go about forming that leadership team?
So a couple of years ago, I just recognized that, as one person, I could no longer do everything. So I actually did work with a consultant to kind of get some ideas about how do I create roles and how do I determine what tasks I would like to keep and then how do I delegate those tasks. So that consultant was very helpful in terms of just mapping out the various roles that I was looking to fulfill. The big ones for me were around clinical supervision and mentorship. So hiring a clinical director. So actually, we actually have two clinical directors, one at each of our locations in Alberta. That was key, just in terms of supervision and ethics, and so that was huge. And then someone to run the operations of the business because I knew again, like such a large company, I couldn't do that on my own. So having a COO was very key. And then we have a director of people and culture, which is
Hmm.
for me like really the heart of what we do at the Grief and Trauma Healing Center is really cultivating a safe space for our therapists to show up and be their authentic selves. And I wanted to be able to scale that culture that I worked so hard to build over the years. And so that was a very easy role to develop as well.
So, how did you go about finding that consultant, and how did you decide that this is the time to do it?
So I think I just went on Google honestly and kind of seen what was out there, and I actually came across the practice of the practice, which I
Oh,
am now a consultant at the practice of the
congrats.
practice. So that's how it started. So I worked with a past consultant named Allison. I was really inspired by the work that we did together, and I mean anyone who knows like who has kind of looked into the private practice world has probably come across POP. So yeah, that's kind of how I got involved with the consulting world.
Yeah, they have great resources there.
Yes.
So, from looking at your website and listening to some of the stuff that you produce, one of the things I find most impressive is your clear articulation of your vision, mission, culture, and I think it's very sincere when just hearing you talk about your practice. I feel very you can really come off as really empathic, and if I was suffering from grief, I would really feel supported talking with you. Um,
Thank you.
I'm kind of curious, how did you think through that big picture vision, and how important is that to running a business?
That is such a good question. I think it is absolutely everything, honestly. Really understanding what your purpose is, your vision, your mission, your values. And sometimes we're not super clear on what those things are when we start our private practice. We know that we have a desire to serve and we want to give back to the community, but we may not quite understand all of the underpinnings of that business. For me, it was very clear that I was called to this path after my dad died by suicide. And that's really what kind of impassioned me to want to serve and really inspired the vision for our business. And it was my own experiences. So I'm really grateful to hear that feedback that you can see the authenticity and genuineness because it truly is a reflection of my heart and the heart of what we do from day one of the business when it was just me to now scaling up to the large group practice that we have today.
Hmm. Well, it's wonderful to take a extremely tragic event like that and use that as a way to help more people. So
Thank you.
congratulations on that. Um,
Thank you.
and so another part that struck me on your website, I think it's under it might be under the values. You talk about servant leadership. Where does that come from, and what does that mean to you?
So I am a person of faith. So I love Jesus. Everyone who knows me knows I love Jesus. And I, he truly is the role model for me in terms of leadership and virtuous leadership. Someone who shows up from a place of love and service and is really God's hands and feet on earth and just wants to make an impact on the world and love people. So servant leadership really comes from that idea that we're here to serve each other and nothing is beneath me as the CEO of this business. So if that's going in and doing the dishes or taking out the garbage or helping out anyone on the team in any way, that's how I want to show up. And I think, again, another big quality of that is just serving from a place of humility and recognizing that without our team, none of this would be happening. None of this would be possible. There's no way I could create this ripple and this impact on my own, and I never want to forget that. So, being of service to our team, our clients, to the community is really at the heart of what we do and that approach.
That's wonderful. Have you ever received any pushback in the professional world for your values?
Surprisingly, I haven't. I thought that we would, especially, our number one value is choose love. And it's not a very common value that you hear in a psychology practice. So I was, to be honest, a little bit nervous about being as vulnerable and as authentic as we are. But at the end of the day, I just really reminded myself that, you know what? This is what we're here to do. We are here to love and respect and serve people. And that was that unique calling that I had after my dad died. And I'm going to stay true to that. And you know what? We've just received nothing but respect and love from our colleagues and the community and everyone who has joined the team.
That's wonderful. There's always that little bit of uncertainty. How are people going to react? It leaves you vulnerable when you're talking about opening up your values. But I kind of wonder, like, is it like even if there is pushback, is it even worth living if you're not living according to your values?
Exactly. Exactly. Like we are here for a purpose. I so believe that everybody has a purpose on this earth. And if we've been called to this platform as a therapist to help people, isn't that what it's about? Loving and serving, like at the root of it. And if that isn't what our genuine desire is, I think, people are in the wrong profession, honestly.
Well said. That's so encouraging to hear that. Thanks.
You're
Um,
welcome.
I, so can you just share with us some entrepreneurial lessons you've picked up on the way?
Yes, there's so many. Johan, when you presented this question, I was like, okay, what are some of the key entrepreneurial lessons I've learned? So, number one, seek peace in every single decision I make. Every
Mm,
time I have ignored my intuition, every time I have not felt right about a decision in my business, it always turned out to, not work out. So that's like number one for me. Every single decision I make in my business, I really seek God. The peace of God is what I call it. It might just be kind of a gut feeling for other people, but it's that feeling that we know where it's like, this feels right, this feels aligned, it's in alignment with my values, and I feel really expanded. I come alive when I think about this decision. So that's like number one. I would say another one is to really stay true to your purpose and your vision. That is the thing that's going to carry you through those really difficult and darker seasons in business, because they do come and they will happen. And I found that when I've kind of broken through the next level of business and sort of scaling up, that is really what anchored me through those times. And another lesson I've learned is not to force, coerce, or manipulate anything. If we need to force something in our business, it's probably not right. So that can be around the timing of things. Maybe it's, opening a second location, or it's leasing an office space, or it's hiring multiple clinicians. Sometimes we just need to pause and take a step back and really trust the process and not try to force something to happen.
How do you know whether you're forcing it or not? Because at the same time, like listening to Joe, he's a real go-getter. Hey, you need to push and stuff, get things done. So how do you discern that?
Yes, and I so relate to Joe, and I'd say that is absolutely my style as well, is like go,
Yeah.
go, go. Um, but it would be like, when you're hitting multiple roadblocks, when you're not getting the results that you're hoping for,
Okay.
when things just don't seem to be working out, but we try to force it anyway, that's usually a sign that maybe it's not necessarily not right, maybe it's just not right now. So, like, when we opened our second location, um, it was when we initially started to start that process, we could not find an office space. Things were just not kind of coming together the way we hoped they would. And so I said, you know what? Maybe this isn't the time. So we paused, and I think we waited about 9 months or so. And then once we went out again, we were like, hey, everything feels right. Everything's lining up. Boom, we found our office space, and everything just was seamless. And that for me was a sign that it was the right
Mhm.
timing, it was God's time. And I really felt peace about that. Um, so yeah, just kind of pay attention, pay attention to those signs that, things are just not aligning.
Yeah, I think it strikes me that you're describing a kind of wisdom that when you slow down and make decisions in silence and in peace, thinking about the big picture gives you a different and truer perspective.
Yes, absolutely. Just like trust that process. Another example of how this has happened in my business is when I have felt really desperate to hire. And so we just hire whoever, and the person isn't aligned with the vision, mission, values. They're not a culture fit for the business. But because I felt desperate that we needed someone to fill this position, it never works out when we do that. So again, it's just like, hey, if things aren't working out, we just got to surrender to that, give it a little bit of time, and then come back to it.
Mhm. Wonderful. By the way, for listeners who are unaware, when we're talking about Joe, we're referring to the founder of Practice of the Practice, Joe Sanic. Um, so you are a consultant for Practice of the Practice. How did that come about, and what do you think about this new role?
So after working with Allison on the pop team, who's no longer with the practice of the practice, I was really inspired by how she supported me. And because I love business so much, I love just all the inner workings of running a business, and particularly purpose driven businesses. I had a conversation with her and I said, do you think that, you know, this could be something I could do? And she said, absolutely. Let me connect you with Joe. And so Joe and I had a brief conversation. I was very authentic. I said, this is who I am. This is what I've built. This is sort of my style. This is what I'm passionate about. And he said, you know what? I would love for you to join the team. And so that's how it happened. And I've been with Pop now for almost a year and a half. And it's been so much fun. It's kind of a different flavor of kind of infusing my heart and passion for service in a different way. So instead of sitting with clients who are grieving, I get to sit with other practice owners and really inspire
Mhm.
them to build heart-centered, purpose-driven practices that, really elevate that unique calling that they have. And then we get to do all the practical, technical things in the business as well. So I really love kind of the balance of both,
Mhm.
the head and the heart, I would say.
So when you're talking about heart-centered, purpose-driven practices, is that something that you uniquely offer as a consultant, or is that something that all the consultants offer?
Well, we all have like a very different perspective on our businesses, but I think I'm definitely known for being the very heart-centered leader and business owner and really helping people connect to that deeper why, that deeper purpose,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
really helping them emphasize the importance of culture and people in their business. And so anytime someone is
Hmm.
interested in that kind of work, I know Joe just sends them my way because it tends to usually be
Hmm.
a really great fit.
That's awesome. How much do you learn from your consulting clients?
That's a great question. I learn every day something. I'm either learning about just the nuances of having a private practice in various states. A lot of my clients, most of them are from the US. So I've learned
Right.
so much about insurance companies, about W 2 uh, agreements, and that sort of thing. And also, just what's been really kind of neat is it's been sort of this accountability for me as well in my own business that, if I am showing up for these consulting clients and I'm giving them advice and helping them strategize in their businesses, I better make sure that everything's working well in my own. So it's been very good in terms of just my own accountability, showing up with my team, making sure that we are we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's and always looking to the future and making good decisions. So that's been really great.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my mentors says that you grow the most when you help other people grow.
I
Uh,
love that. So true. Even as therapists,
yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. It's awesome. We have an awesome career, awesome field. How do you know? How do you advise people when to start considering moving into consulting more?
Sorry, what's the question, Johan?
Sorry, I'm just trying to. One of my reflections is when someone's growing a practice or growing a business in general, at some stage, often they move into more of a consulting role. And do you have any advice for how to discern when is the time to do that if someone's interested in that?
I would say when you have your business in a position where you can really step back from the day to day operations. So, for example, I don't really see clients anymore. I'm not really involved in the day to day. So, I have that capacity to go and work with the clients through POP. I think until you have your leadership in place, you have a really strong administrative team, and you can step away a lot more, that would be a really good time. And I think also just feeling really confident in your skill set and in your experience of building a business so that you are able to share those experiences and help people to kind of pursue the path that you've already been on. So I think that's kind of a good time if people are interested in becoming a consultant.
Hmm. Hmm. So I'm a dreamer. I'd love hearing what people's dreams are. What are your professional dreams that you would love to see accomplished by the end of your career?
So right now I am pursuing my Doctor of Psychology. I'm in my third year, so I'm
Nice.
halfway. Very excited about that. And so I
Hmm.
really have my big dreams are to publish books. So authorship, speaking, I want to do the TED stage. That's it's been a dream of mine for a really long time. Just a lot of speaking engagements, which I do
Hmm.
quite a few now, but I really want that to become sort of central is being able to speak to larger audiences and bring my message to more people. Um, and then in terms of my business, we would love to expand the Grief and Trauma Healing Center across Canada. So those are some of my big lofty dreams. And yeah, so getting this
Hmm.
doctorate done is such a big part of that. Like just being able to have that credential, I think will be really important and really being known as an expert in the field of grief and
Hmm.
suffering. And just want to help all the people, Johan.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, I don't envy you pursuing a doctorate in the middle of all this stuff. That's remarkable. I don't know how you do
Thank
it. So, okay, and you said the TED stage. Did I hear that correctly? Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Um, one question I wanted to ask was, which virtuous leader do you find most inspiring? And I think you answered that earlier. Um, uh, so let me ask a follow-up question. Um, and do any virtuous leaders stand out to you that you've met through your work that you'd like to highlight?
Honestly, like this might sound so cliche, but like just having that opportunity to hear people's stories, like client stories, or even just therapists on my team, or people that I've met in the community that have felt called to use their pain for a greater purpose. For example, a very dear friend of mine, her name is Glory Meldrum. She's the founder and chair of a world class treatment center called Little Warriors. And it's the only treatment center in the world that works with children. It's like an inpatient treatment center for children who've been sexually abused. And it's right here, in my home city. Like it's incredible. They're in like 7 or 9 medical journals around the world. And she was a victim of child sexual abuse, and she took this horrific childhood experience and turned that for good in the world. So it's people like Glory and people just like our clients who survive these horrific losses and then want to give back to the community. I'm just so touched by those stories. And I think, those people really have the heart of Jesus, which is that desire for love and service and generosity and community. And yeah, so they exist everywhere.
That's awesome. Do you have any particular mentors that stand out to you, or books you've read, or other like historical figures that you look to for inspiration?
Well, I think this is a classic, but I love Dr. Brene Brown and all of her work on shame and vulnerability and, imperfection. And she is a role model for me 100%, and just has inspired me to continue to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to share my story, to, really connect deeply with people. And then I would say another huge mentor that I had the opportunity to train with and work with was John James, who's the founder of the Grief Recovery Institute. That's where, my initial training in the grief
Mm-hmm.
recovery method
Mm-hmm.
was with John. And I became a trainer for Canada for the Institute. And that program became the signature method that we use with grieving people at the Grief and Trauma Healing Center. So
Mm-hmm.
I have such a strong love and appreciation for John and all of the work they've done at the Institute.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The other question I love to ask people who aspire to virtuous leadership is, what challenges do you do you face? I can elaborate on that more, but just in that struggle to be a virtuous leader, what challenges do you face?
I think anytime you lead with vulnerability and authenticity, and you really have a heart of service, you're always open to things like criticism and being hurt and feeling, really sensitive to the actions of others. I know that, like, I've been hurt a number of times in business for various reasons. And it's because I do lead with my heart and I lead with my heart on my sleeve. And sometimes I do have these conversations with myself, Johan, where it's like, if I could just cut off this part of myself, just live in my head, be super logical, not be emotional, not connect um, with people and with stories and so deeply with the work that I do, maybe it would be easier. I've had those moments. But
Hmm.
then I always come back, right? Pick myself up off the floor and come back and remember why I'm doing what I'm doing. But I would say there is just a level of vulnerability involved in showing up in that type of leadership.
Well, I think it's totally worth it.
Totally worth it. Always. No regrets.
I wonder if you've had this experience of feeling a little bit like isolated or alone, because not everyone is striving for great aspirations professionally. and those who are not always doing it within the context of virtue or the greater good. Is that an experience that you have? And if so, how do you address it?
Absolutely, I have. Absolutely. I have felt isolated and alone many, many times throughout my career, and even with some of those bigger dreams and endeavors that I have, because it can be difficult to meet other people that have kind of gone before you or are kind of doing similar things. So it's been really key for me to have a strong support system around me, like my therapist, my spiritual director, my business coach, my business strategist, and then also finding like-hearted people who have similar, who kind of share a similar purpose. Could be totally different industry, but being able to connect with other heart-centered business women has
Mhm.
been so key, so that I can call them and get advice, or if I need a shoulder to cry on, or just someone to just lift up my spirits.
Mhm.
That has been absolutely everything for me.
Mhm. Is there any sort of network or group you're involved in that helps?
You know what? I'm not involved in any groups. I have considered it. I've looked into things like, the Entrepreneurs Organization, tech. Those are kind of the organizations here for business owners that are, around that 1 to 2 million gross revenue. But I haven't connected honestly with. It's very technical, it's very mechanical, and I'm just not that
Mhm.
type of business owner. So although I
Mhm.
know that's very important for business, um, I just instead have found people that I connect to and have really just nurtured those relationships.
Mhm. Well, I'm wondering if it would be helpful to have an organization that fosters virtuous leadership, and where people can have community and mutual support and bounce ideas off each other and just have friendship.
I think that would be brilliant, honestly, because I believe it is rare.
Mhm.
I mean, we would hope that most leaders would have that kind of approach to leadership in business, but I think it is actually more rare. And there is a special place for virtuous leaders that lead from the heart and from, a very ethical place and really care about the impact that they make. So I 100% agree with you.
Great, yeah. Cool. That gives me some food for thought. Can you tell us a little bit about what projects you're most excited about right now?
So a couple of projects, well, number one, like working on my doctorate is huge. So just kind of getting through that coursework, getting closer and closer to the doctoral project, which is very exciting. So that's something I'm personally doing. We're also developing our first grief course. So we've never
Uh,
tapped into the course world. So we're working on that as a company. So that's very exciting. I also have dreams of starting a podcast where I can take my passion for listening to people's stories of hope and bringing that to a bigger platform. So that's something that's kind of in the works, and then we're looking to expand into another city in Alberta. So a couple big things in the works.
wow, yeah, that is a lot. Other than time, what would you say is the biggest limiting factor?
Um, oh my gosh, being one person and trying to balance a family, a husband, a child, so your social life, really prioritizing self-care and physical activity and other things outside of business, and then pursuing all of your business goals. I think time is the biggest limiter, and you can't do everything all at once even if you want to. And I think that's been a huge lesson for me, as well as recognizing that I can have these dreams and I don't need to accomplish everything in 12 months. It might be 3 to
Mhm.
5 years, and that's okay. And really just, again, lots of prayer and kind of pursuing those things I feel called to first, kind of
Mhm.
working on those things, nurturing those projects before moving to the next thing.
Mhm. Mhm. What questions have I not asked that you'd like to discuss?
Well, you asked some really great questions. Um, I think we probably talked about this, but I think, the the message that I would like to leave people who are listening to this, who are, if they're starting their practice, they're growing their practice, is just to really stay true to who you are as a clinician, as a
Hmm.
leader, as a business owner. Really get clear on, what does it mean to be authentic for you? What are those values that are most important to you? Because those are the values that are also going to drive your business. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to recreate what someone else has done. Listen to that calling. Like, what is that unique passion that you have? And just pursue it. And that's, that would be the message that I'd want to leave people with today who are listening.
It's a little bit scary to do that, but it's also exciting.
Yes, absolutely. It's totally vulnerable. It takes so much courage. But I think we have, one life to live. And you don't want to look back, when you're on your deathbed and live in regret and wonder, what if I tried that thing? And that's really how I live my life, honestly, and how I run my business. Even when we fail and we make mistakes and things don't work out, at least I don't live with the regret of not trying. And sometimes we have to try various things before the one thing sticks. And we have to be willing to do that if we want to do great things in this world. So I say go for it.
Well, there's no one else like you, so if you don't do it, then no one else is going to do it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, wow, this was so inspiring and encouraging. I really appreciate you and what you do. I really encourage your continued growth and impact on the world. It's just I can't really express in words, but just yeah, keep doing it. Way to go, Ash.